Imagine living in a world where the air you breathe chokes you and the water you drink might make you sick. This was the reality for many Americans in the mid-20th century, with cities plagued by severe smog and neighborhoods devastated by toxic waste. The environmental crisis of this time led to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, in 1970, a short 55 years ago. But is this enough? In this video, we will examine what is the Environmental Protection Agency, why was the EPA created, and finally, why is the EPA so controversial? The EPA's creation was a turning point, making a significant shift in how the United States managed and approached environmental protection. The EPA is a federal agency tasked with protecting human health and the environment. The agency was established in response to public outcry over increasingly degraded air and water quality, with events such as the Love Canal incident and the severe smog episodes of major cities, highlighting the dire consequences of unchecked pollution. The EPA sets and enforces environmental regulations, conducts research, and cleans up contaminated sites. The EPA's work is essential because it directly impacts our health, our communities, and the future of our planet. As President Nixon stated, the Clean Air Act of 1970 was the beginning of serious efforts to tackle clean air and water for future generations. The EPA emerged from a growing environmental movement in the 1960s. This movement was fueled by increasing public awareness of pollution, due in part to events like the severe smog episodes in New York City and Los Angeles, which had significant health consequences. The Love Canal incident, where residents suffered severe health issues due to toxic waste disposal, further highlighted the urgent need for government action. This groundswell of public concern led to the passage of key legislation like the National Environmental Policy Act, the NEPA, and the Clean Air Act. The early laws laid the groundwork for the EPA's regulatory framework, establishing standards for limiting emissions from various sources. The Clean Air Act of 1970, for instance, addressed 6 major pollutants and nearly 200 hazardous air pollutants. The EPA consolidated various federal programs aimed at addressing pollution, becoming a single authoritative entity. This bipartisan effort was meant to proactively protect public health and the environment. The EPA has overseen significant improvements in air and water quality. Between 1990 and 2020, national carbon monoxide concentrations improved by 73%. Lead levels in the environment dropped by an astounding 86%. The Clean Air Act and subsequent regulations fundamentally reshaped industrial practices. The Superfund program has also remediated hundreds of contaminated sites. The Love Canal incident exemplifies the human cost of environmental negligence. Residents suffered from cancer, miscarriages, and birth defects due to exposure to toxic waste. This tragedy sparked a broader movement for environmental justice and highlighted the need to protect vulnerable communities. The EPA was created through bipartisan support and continues to function as a critical tool for environmental protection backed by federal laws and scientific research. The early anti-pollution measures, although initially limited in scope, provided the foundation for more comprehensive legislation and effective regulations. The Superfund program, while facing funding challenges, has been crucial for addressing the legacy of hazardous waste sites and is increasingly focused on efficiency and private investment. To be sure, the EPA has faced criticism for its regulatory scope, funding, and effectiveness. Some argue that environmental regulations can hinder economic development, imposing burdens on businesses and limiting growth. There are also those who believe that the EPA is overreaching and impinging on individual freedoms and private property rights. However, data for the past 50 years shows that the EPA was successful at reducing air pollution while the gross domestic product has soared. But nevertheless, the evidence demonstrates the necessity of federal environmental protection. Without the EPA, the health and environmental outcomes would be significantly worse, disproportionately impacting already marginalized communities. The long-term consequences of failing to address environmental problems far outweigh the short-term costs of regulation, the potentially irreversible damage to the environment, and significant public health costs. The EPA is not perfect, but its creation represents a crucial step towards ensuring environmental protection. As we face new challenges such as climate change, we must continue to debate and refine the agency's role and effectiveness. The ethical questions surrounding environmental protection are complex, requiring us to balance economic growth with our responsibility to the planet and future generations. This is not just a job for the EPA. It is our responsibility as individuals to be informed and participate in an ongoing public dialogue about the crucial ethical issues regarding environmental protection and climate change. So what do you think? Join the discussion in the comments below and let us know how you think we can balance our need for progress with our responsibility to the environment. How do we balance economic development with the environmental protection, especially in communities most vulnerable to industrial pollution? To what extent should corporations bear financial responsibility for environmental cleanup? What mechanisms can ensure both corporate accountability and continued economic viability? And finally, in an era of accelerating climate, how do we navigate the complex interplay between individual freedoms, corporate interests, and collective environmental survival?